Before starting my presentation, I would like to thank Dr. Jira and her university, and of course the chairperson, Mr. Amadjit, and the CEL organization, and all the keynote speakers and presenters from all around the world. And today also I feel very pleased to present and share my viewpoints about educational research. I choose this topic. It's the multiplicity of doing educational research. So I was focused on three main issues, and we are talking about what's the scientific research, and then I will talk about the attitudes for nowadays educational researchers, and then I will present and introduce some alternative educational methodologies. Okay, so the first I will talk about. Okay, why I choose this topic? Because the two main reasons. The first one is the scientism. What is the scientism? It's an attitude, because over the 100 years, the scientific development and the technology give humans confidence and sometimes overconfidence. And we see the science as the only one knowledge source, the only way of knowing. So the scientism means we see science as the only way to know the world. And in educational field, we see scientific research as the only way of the knowledge we can trust. So I will discuss this later, why this attitude is not appropriate. And the second reason is negligent on alternative paradigms, because we focus on scientific research and overvalue science. So we sometimes ignore other paradigms, which can also make contributions to our knowledge. I mean, of course, including education. So that's why I choose this topic. So I will focus on, so it's the three main themes I'm talking about today. Is science conceptualization. What is science? What is science, and what is scientific research? And then I will try to have some lessons and draw some implications from the science philosophy, and I will give some, in my viewpoints, the appropriate attitudes on doing educational research. And finally, I will go into the alternative methodologies and to introduce some, it's not very new, but some students or some staff may not be so familiar with. So it's the three main themes I'm going to give today. So the first one, I'm going to talk about what is science. I will present three iconic figures in the 20th century. The first one is Karl Popper. The three figures are all from physics, natural science, because we, as an educational researcher, we learn the methodologies from natural science. We adjust it to social science. So we look at the scientists in natural science and look at what they think of science. What is science for them? And Karl Popper say The aim of science is to falsify, not to confirm. What does he mean? It means if you want to prove all swans are white, you can't find evidence to present swans are white. Instead, you need to try to find out some or few swans are black. You know what I mean? For example, if you want to prove Santa Claus is true, you cannot present evidence and arguing, I present the data and evidence, and this can prove Santa Claus is true. No, in science, you can't do that. You need to present the information, saying that Santa Claus isn't true. So you need to think of this. So the aim of science is to falsify, that means refute. And another, his main idea is researchers should always be critical and reflexive. That means because the scientists cannot prove what is true, but science can prove what is not true. So we only can prove what is not true. So we need to be very critical on our stances, assumptions, paradigms, theories. And the third main idea is he set up the science and the pseudoscience or non-science. He say the real science is to falsify, and the non-science or pseudoscience is to confirm, to prove and saying what is true. But for him, the real science is to say what is not true. So this is Karl Popper's main idea. Another scientist, Thomas Kuhn, he argued another idea. He say science is to solve the puzzles. That means to figure out solutions. So for scientists, we are going to prove, not disprove, to confirm, not to refute or falsify. So, and he also argues that any paradigm contains a set of assumptions which we don't question. For example, when we do educational research, we have assumptions like humans' behaviors have regularity. You know, the human will exhibit the similar behaviors in a similar context. So this idea is presumption. We cannot prove through scientific methods. So we all have paradigm contains a set of self-evident assumptions. And in most of the time, the scientists just accept this paradigm and do the normal science. That means that we do the regular schedule. You know, we apply the assumptions to educational practice. We do research according to the paradigms we believe. So in most of the time, we just do the normal science. But sometimes we will meet the situations where we can't solve with our theories or paradigms. And then we start reflecting and questioning our own paradigms or theories. And if it lasts for a long time, we can't solve the anomalies. That means the situation we cannot solve on our paradigm. And we start to shift our paradigm. We seek for another paradigm or theory to solve those questions. And it will lead to a paradigm shift. So in most of the time, according to Thomas Kuhn, we, as a scientist or educational researchers, we do normal science. And once we have questions or controversy or conflicting practice, and we start questioning and thinking out of new paradigm. So that's Thomas Kuhn's idea. The third one is Paul Feyerabend. And he argues that we don't do normal science because Paul says that the fascinating part of science is revolution. That means we produce new ideas. We have new theory or paradigm. So the science revolution requires creativity, and we can't set up our personal beliefs and science because science requires belief. We have the emotions, we have the motivations. You know, for example, I'll ask all of you one question. You want to be an educational researcher because of rationality or because in rationality, I mean emotions or motivations. I think most of us have both because doing research makes us happy, makes us feel fulfilled, and we also think research can improve the educational practice. We can do something for educational practice for students or even for the next generations. So we can't separate the belief, you know, and the science. So the science requires creativity and belief. And he also proposed a very, very, very controversial idea. He says that every method goes. That means there is no fixed rule for science research because sometimes, like the traditional medicine that can make contributions to modern medication. So we require different methods to produce scientific revolution. So that's his main idea. So from these three figures, the scientist in natural science, we can have a clear idea what is science. And science is actually an evolving dynamic idea. And it's a multiple and competing ideas because they all have different definitions, conceptualizations of science. And also, science is actually historically, culturally situated. For example, in the ancient Greek time, Aristotle argues that we need to use observations produce new knowledge. But nowadays, because of the development of the technology, we can do experiments in depth. So nowadays, the scientific research also can rely on experiments in labs. Of course, we can also use observations. But we can use experiments, observations. But in ancient time, they didn't have experiments generally. So science is not universal or unified concept. It's actually multiple and competing ideas. So these ideas, have the implications for scientific research? First one is we need to very critical and reflexive on each approach. And also, scientific research is only one way of knowing. And of course, the world is multiple truths. And also, it's very important to note that non-science does not mean no insights or inspiring. Non-science can still be very inspiring and have insights. And also, faith is indispensable with science. So we need to have faith. So now I'm going to present some different ideas from traditional methodologies. First one, I'm going to introduce the alternative paradigms. We have different paradigms like empiricism, the scientific research foundation. Over the past decades, we also have the critical theory or critical race theory. We also have the postmodernism, post-constructionism. We need to not accept, but at least open to different ideas of the science. What is critical theory can bring to our educational research practice? So critical theory argues that knowledge is historically, culturally contextualized. And knowledge is not value-free, is value-laden, and is subjective. And the social system are developed to benefit powerful people and, of course, disadvantaged people or people in lower social status. But we can make change through collective actions to change the inequality or injustice through collective action. And then is the postmodernism or post-constructionism. It claims that knowledge is historical and culturally contextualized. It's the same as critical theory. And the similar knowledge is value-laden and subjective. But please notice third, the third principle. Power is used to normalize people, not oppress. Because in critical theory, they argue power is used to oppress, to sacrifice the people with disadvantaged situation. But in postmodernism, they argue power is to normalize people. What it means? The Foucault says that the society have expectations on teachers, what you need to behave as a teacher, what you need to behave as a school leader, what you need to behave as a parent, what you need to behave as a student. All this is social values, social standards, and through the socialization, we get used to those criteria, the values. So it's the way we normalize people, we educate people, we expect what they should have. So the power is actually to normalize people. And they also value individual experience. And also this is very important because in critical theory, they claim we need to use collective actions or acts to change the social system. But postmodernism says we need to focus on individuals, each individual. And if some people argue I am going to represent one group of people, and they will become another power to silent people. So they argue, the postmodernists argue we need to value individual experience, and we oppose collective experience because everyone is different. So what these ideas can have on our educational research practice. So I will, because of time limits, I just present three methodologies. The first one is the narrative study. Narrative means storytelling or story. So narrative studies, you can, based on critical theory, you can based on narrative, the postmodernism, and the story can use the tool to present, construct, explain an event or experience or personal life story. So you can use narrative to speak out that people focus on your experience, your difficulties, your dilemma. For example, if you investigate a person with a minority background, and you can present his or her narrative story, and to let people know his her experience, and to try to make people aware of the injustice, and his situation, and to try to make the change of the system. And also, the narrative study can, because of stories, we can have a personal or collective stories, can have a tremendous impact on educational system. For example, we present the students from the ESL background. We can know their difficulties regarding learning English, example, and we can try to make some changes or significant changes on education system. And also we need to notice that what is present and what is not present or is also very important, because as we say, because the power, we silent people. We allow people to say something and not say something. So when some story hidden, we need to figure out, explore why those stories are silenced. So that according to narratives study, the stories have a huge impact. And next one is critical theory. It's we can focus on the disadvantage and the minority background, and we can examine the system, the educational system, and we can use the interview, use the documents or the raw case, the jury cases to figure out the interplay between the race and the social issues that are such as the over representation of minority students in special education. So it's the critical race theory. And the third one is the critical action research. Different from the traditional action research, the critical action research focuses more on systematic problems. The critical action researchers don't just focus on individual level problems, but they focus on the system or the law, the policy, how the policy disadvantages the students with the disabilities or from the minority background or different language background or the cultural different background or even the religious different background. So the critical action researchers focus on the systematic problems and try to really do substantial actions to change the status quo. So that's the critical action research. So to conclude, okay, very simple. Science can be identified in multiple ways. So science is not singular, and scientific research is not singular. Methods. It can be defined in multiple ways. And also, we need to notice that educational researchers should acknowledge the limitation of any paradigm, and we should be open to multiple ways of knowing. Okay, thanks for all your listening, and I'll stop here, and I hope next I have more time to share more ideas, details about postmodernism or critical theories, and explain more clearly about what the Derrida or Foucault, those postmodernism modernists are claiming or arguing. Okay, I'll stop here. I will hand back to the chairperson.